Hello and welcome to the Bravo Outsider Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Midwinter, and joining me once again is Sandy Klowak. Sandy, how's it going?
Doing great. Glad to be back.
Awesome. We're glad to have you back. Each week, we bring on someone who doesn't watch Bravo to get their takes on the episode. Joining us this week is Dan Glasswick.
Yeah. Oh, it's my time. The OC is full of secrets, but I've got nothing to hide.
Oh, I'm trying to figure out who that could be. Do you remember which housewife that was?
Yeah, I absolutely do.
Who was it?
Shannon. We're going to talk a lot about her.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I'm excited. We usually start things off just kind of getting your background with reality TV. Have you watched any of these shows before, or any other reality TV shows?
No, not really. I like to watch awkward people date. So Love on the Spectrum, big for me. But reality TV, my wife loves it, and this is her space. I'm just trying to make her proud here.
Good. So she's a Housewives fan, right?
Big fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are her favorite series?
Since COVID happened, I think she's watched them all. I don't know if she has a favorite. She's just along for the ride. It's like an ocean. There's waves, there's ebbs and flows.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, had I known that, I would have tried to have you on while New Jersey was on and get your pick if you were Team Melissa or Team Teresa, and maybe cause some marital strife, because that is something that people are hugely divided on. And so I would be really curious to see what a couple that is made up of a tree stump and a Melissa stan would look like.
Who's the one that had the husband that went to jail for embezzlement?
Teresa.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was in the Bahamas recently in a bar, and her ex-husband lives in the Bahamas,
Oh, Juicy Joe.
and we sat like almost right next to him, and my wife was like, Dan, 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 Dan,
Oh my
do you know who this is?
God.
And I'm like, I don't care whatsoever. This means nothing to me.
You guys get
That's
some photos?
amazing.
No, she might have, snapped one that was like behind her shoulder while she was just to inconspicuously do it. But yeah,
Oh yeah, for sure. You have to.
He
housewife
probably would have
mode.
loved that. He probably would have loved
Yeah.
it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. He's got a T-shirt I've seen him post on Instagram where it says "Better Joe" or whatever, because there's two Joes on there. Both Teresa was married to Juicy Joe, and then her brother is Joe Gorga, who's married to Melissa, and that's where the deep family divide is. So yeah, that it would have been amazing to see Juicy Joe for sure. In terms of the shows that we watched today, we are going to be covering Real Housewives of New York and Real Housewives of Orange County. Did either one of these shows stand out to you more, or did you find more compelling?
I just thought they were kind of a juxtaposition to one another. Like OC was trashy reality, and New York was sophisticated, subtle, I'll kill you reality.
Yeah, there it is quite a contrast having these two series on, especially because Orange County is the oldest one of all the franchises. And I mean, it's been getting the facelifts and kind of keeping up with the times, but Real Housewives of New York this season especially it's a reboot, and they've done a complete refresh of the cast and the graphics, and even the tone to an extent is different than what we've seen. So I definitely get where you're coming from in terms of the contrast between these two. Let's start with Orange County, actually, since you had Shannon's tagline. What were your first impressions of each of these housewives? Who stood out?
Um, who stood at it had to be Shannon, because that was the topic of the day, and I just I feel for her. Other than that, I mean, I've seen Taylor before.
Oh, okay, yeah.
She's been in on the TV when I've walked by and watched. I mean, I think she's famous for a meme. Is she not, with the cat?
Yeah, the meme with the cat.
Um, it was kind of a letdown when I understood what housewives were, because I thought all the real housewives were just like fuck you rich. And
Oh yeah.
I was going through Cameo around Christmas time, and you could get a cameo from Taylor for like $50.
Yeah.
It was just like, this is not the fantasy I had. This is, you shouldn't be on
I
this,
bet you
Taylor.
I bet she's charging a bit more now because that would have been before she like came back on Orange County. I'm sure it would have been filmed, but she was not back on screens yet. So that probably would have been a good time to buy Taylor.
I mean, we could probably, throw up the difference in price now just to see how much.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can find it now. So everyone get excited for Craig looks up information on the internet. Taylor Armstrong is now charging $90 on Cameo. So
Okay.
that would have been a bargain.
Yeah.
You should have
That
got
that's
it.
like a 100% increase at this point.
Craig, have you gotten or purchased yourself or received a cameo from any of the housewives?
I have received a Cameo from Kim D. It was my brother got it for me for my birthday. So yeah, I was excited about that one. There's not to bring up Big Brother like I always do, but one of my favorite like podcasts about Big Brother has a weekly during the season. They do like a stock market type game with the that takes into account like players' positions, and they all do ratings, and you can buy and sell stocks in the various house guests on Big Brother. It would be really interesting to do something similar to that on Real Housewives, but use like their Cameo prices as as kind of what gauges the market.
It could all go to
Uh,
charity. It would be a great, philanthropic activity for the housewives.
yeah, for sure. Were those the only housewives that stood out to you, or did you have more?
Um, I mean, Tamra and Eddie, that was the start of the episode. Sadly, their fitness, with Cut Fitness, had to close down,
Yeah.
and oddly enough, they opened up an office, but there was no business. That kind of stood out to me. It was just like, it was like a, if we build it, it will come. It was just kind of like, nah, he likes thinking in projects. Like,
Yeah.
if we just build a runway in a farm field, the PJ will come. Let's just,
Yeah.
that was the level of
Yeah.
affluence we were dealing with, is just like, yeah, if you have an office, businesses just grow.
Didn't Tamara say like she like that's where he goes to masturbate or something like that? That's like
She doesn't care. As long as
yeah.
he's out of,
They've been milking a storyline of having no I mean, I think they do technically have a business, but clearly Eddie doesn't work for it in any meaningful way because exactly as you're saying, that they've really been milking a storyline of having pretty much no business for the whole story for the whole season so far. It's getting a little boring, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think their business is like some sort of CBD oil thing or something like that I've seen them promoting on Instagram. But you're right, it's just like it doesn't need to be a storyline. And honestly, Tamara, she's bringing enough this season that I don't think she needs this storyline in order to stay compelling. Like we could probably do without it. I don't unless it's going to pay off in some way towards the end of the season, but yeah, you're right. I could totally take or leave it.
It seems like it's more for Eddie to be
Um
involved or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get into your highlights, Dan. What were your highlights from this episode?
highlights. I really felt that this episode was a little bit, I don't want to say boring, but in terms of like the storyline, it really was just an intervention for Shannon and her relationship. And it went from one group of friends to the other, which the drama was like, well, these people were talking about your relationship. And then it was like, fuck you, don't talk about my relationship. Oh, can I swear on this? Can I cuss?
Yeah,
All
for
right.
sure.
Fuck you, don't talk about my relationship. And then well, they were talking about your relationship, and now these people are talking about your relationship. And at the end of the day, you know, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, And, you know, I hate that I did this, but I had to Google it after to see what the relationship was. And spoiler
Yeah.
alert, it's not there. And really, come on. I mean, I feel like from this one episode, was it leading up to this? Was there a lot of this going on, or was this like the straw that broke the camel's back?
So surprisingly, we hadn't seen very much of this up until about 2 episodes ago, is when this kind of got introduced. Um, but yeah, this, I guess, was some talk that was happening in the background where Heather, I guess Shannon had disclosed this to Heather, and Heather then spread it amongst everyone, and that's where the bulk of this conflict is coming.
Well, John called her fat and unattractive, so that feels like a deal breaker. But there was like
Yeah.
this idea of like vaults and like different silos of vaults and how everyone had disrespected the vault. But like at the end of the day, it was just like, Shannon, come on. This guy's a
Yeah.
dickhead. Get rid of it. They're friends now, I
Yeah.
guess. I don't know.
And nothing says I have a normal relationship like freaking out and storming out of the house screaming, I have a normal relationship.
I am not irrational. I'm not irrational. Don't make me look irrational.
But this scene was a definite highlight for me as well. I loved how it all played out. This kind of mid-season arc about Shannon's relationship was really rewarding for me. It was short and sweet. We might see it play out a bit longer, but I think that we get to see a lot of action in terms of the social, like, Housewives strategy of the game. We got to see Gina really mastermind this situation by bringing it up to Tamra at that devil bitch lunch that they had a couple episodes ago, and it's just kind of been making the rounds. And she knew that Tamara was going to end up bringing this to Shannon, and I feel like Tamara played this really perfectly.
Yeah, without further context about how everyone else was, and just, you know, you do me, I'll do you party. All right, they're all doing something. It felt like game night was a bachelorette party in terms of just like, let's talk about
Totally.
all the fucking and sucking that we do, and keg stands, let's get it going. Um, you know, just a typical games night for some socialites. Um,
Vicki brought it. She brought the keg and she brought the energy. I really appreciated it. It's so nice seeing Vicki and Tamara back on the screens. I think they never should have been put on pause. I've said that multiple times over the past, but I am a firm believer that they are so core to what this current iteration of Real Housewives of Orange County is. I think you could make a case that Orange County needed to be rebooted at the end of last season, because it did feel like it was kind of slumping and just missing something. But I think we are seeing this season that it was missing Vicki and Tamra and that energy.
Do you think Vicki will be back, Craig?
I feel like I feel like she will be back. I mean, if it's, unless it's something that she says no to, I feel like Bravo is going to bring her back. I don't know. What do you think?
As I was watching this, my honest thought was like, Shannon's always pumping up Vicki. She's gonna be so much fun. We're gonna have so much fun. I'm like, Vicki, I don't know. I guess she brings a keg. I was like, Craig's gonna love this. Craig's gonna be.
Yeah.
He loves Vicki. I'm not against Vicki. I do love Shannon, as you know, though, and her whatever a keg stand is supposed to look like. I honestly can't say I know, but whatever Shannon did was art. So I loved that moment. I love Shannon for her physical comedy, as you know, and yeah. So I mean, they do bring a lot. The Tres Amigos or whatever do certainly provide that. So fair enough.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I want to talk a little bit about Heather this episode. Dan, you didn't mention your first impression of Heather, but what were your thoughts about Heather?
who did Heather dress up as? What Describe her outfit.
Yeah, this is a
Okay, so
confusing
she
episode
dressed
for a
up
newbie.
as Jen. Yeah, yeah, totally. She dressed up as Jen. So she had like she's typically got like dark brown hair, but she had like a blonde wig on or something.
Oh, with a trucker hat,
No, so
That was actual
the
Jen who dressed
governor,
up as Taylor.
a
yeah,
little red kind of half
yeah,
back.
yeah, the red thing,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, she's a little instigator. I did have some thoughts on Heather. They're escaping me right now. Um, I mean, I think she kind of got blamed for a lot of the secret talking, but really at the end of the day, it came out that like Shannon had talked to everyone. So whether Heather was evil or not, I can't really pass judgment on that because it sounds again like everyone was talking about it, and maybe, for what John had said, he was kind of a prick. But what I can say is that I was a little bit confused because during the episode they had a quick cut to Heather's relationship that said like Heather shut down the rumors that her boyfriend or husband had cheated, and that was it. But then long drawn out like Shannon drama where she didn't get the
Yeah.
benefit of the doubt there. It was just like, and I felt so bad for Shannon because is as if you could see that once John had seen this episode, it was over, and that's what she kept saying. Is just like
Yeah.
this is it, definitively the timeline, which I don't know how long it takes to edit and put out, but she may as well just counted down the days and said, "Yeah, I can love you for 3 more months or however long that
Yeah.
is."
I loved.
Yeah, I
Oh, we have a special guest also. This is Mary. Um, I I love the moment where Shannon realized that she actually must have been blackout drunk telling people about her relationship because she does not remember who she told, and it was just a really real moment where she was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what I said to you." I was like, "Wow,
yeah.
that's a little key here, Shannon," but cool.
Yeah, I thought that that was really amazing as well. Like she was sort of like piecing the string of yarn on the billboard, trying to trace back to where this came from, and like it all pointed back to her, but she could not remember like disclosing this, and I thought that that was amazing. I want to touch on something that you mentioned, Dan. The clip that gets thrown up where there's rumors about Heather and Terry's relationship. I thought that this was a really interesting piece to include within this episode because I thought that it provided a really interesting contrast point for how to handle these situations because this is not dissimilar. Like these situations, if anything, the fact that Heather's like relationship made it into the tabloids and the press, that's a bigger deal than, just some gossip amongst like the friends. So the fact that Heather was able to just like completely brush this off and keep on moving in this situation, I thought that that showed her savvy at the Housewives game and how to deal with these situations. And that's something that Shannon is a fantastic housewife and she brings so much to the show, but that is not one of the things that she brings. She's not delicate. She does not have the savvy at the game. She is like a bull in a china shop, just like being messy and emotional, but also like fun and funny and sympathetic. But yeah, delicate and calculated, she isn't. So seeing this contrast with how Heather plays this situation, um, or her own situation, I thought was very interesting. I also thought that it all provided a contrast to how she handled this current situation. I think Heather handled these rumors about her and Terry way better than she handled the rumors about Shannon and John. Like she took that information and spread it, and you could see that she was like so worried about this mess that like all roads led back to her. And when Shannon was confronting her, she was so paranoid she like snapped and was like, what are you whispering about over there, and really scrambling to take back control of the situation that she had lost.
It's interesting. I don't know who would you would cheer for more, because what do you want to see? Do you want to see someone who's smart and conniving, or do you want to see someone implode on TV and watch them slowly unravel? I mean, what's more interesting? I don't know.
Well, I want to see both, and that's why I love these shows, because you get both, and you get them both simultaneously. Like the fact that we're able to see Heather be both like very smart and like navigating a situation like with such ease, but also be simultaneously so messy and scrambling in another very similar circumstance. Um, I find that so compelling that we get to see these two sides of like someone's humanity.
I wanted to give a shout out to the major character in that show for me was the music editor, because the difference between that and why was unreal in terms of the when someone was plotting, it was very sketchy music. Like that music editor, it must be different from OC and NY, because they really played their part in that, and that certainly upped the stakes for me.
Yeah, that's a really interesting observation, because I think like I was when I was watching Real Housewives of New York, I was remarking to my wife Jess. I was like, the the packaging and the tone and everything seems so elevated on New York, but I think that in that upgrade, it does feel a little bit more clinical, and I think the the drama and the like kind of like fun that gets injected through the edit on Orange County does add a lot to the experience that is really like it is kind of missing on New York. I'm loving this season of New York, but it is very different. I don't think you're getting the same sort of like character that we see in um in this episode of Orange County, and we've seen that like a memorable instance of that in recent memories on Real Housewives of Miami, where they started the show with like this almost horror movie type edit at the when they're at the shop to get like their potions and whatever. Um, that sort of character is a lot of fun, and I like it when editors have that sort of freedom. So maybe that is an element that I didn't realize I was missing in New York.
But it might be that it's what's needed in OC, because there's New York has, I'm sure we'll talk about, it has a quality to it. It has a like a richness to it that OC does not have, and does not hold, I don't know, doesn't hold my interest as much. So they need to have that sort of schlocky sort of element to it to add something, which I appreciate. I think it fits there.
Yeah, for sure. And also, yeah, like we got a very good edit this episode of Orange County. Like I really loved the intro that we got, where it was the intercut flashbacks. When I first started watching this, I'm like, okay, I feel like this is going to be something that someone that hasn't watched this show will appreciate, because it did bring receipts for setting up all the pieces that were coming together when they were showing the flashbacks when they were talking about the party, and when Tamara was on the phone with Jen. I think that they did a lot of really good or great and interesting things with this edit. Dan, did you have any other highlights from this episode?
Um, no, no, I think that's it. I was, there was other people that I kind of wished that I saw more from. Um, but Shannon really took the mainstay for me. I couldn't tell whether I wanted to feel sorry for her, or tell her to move on, give her a
Yeah.
give her a kick and tell her it's gonna be okay. But
I think one of the things that really makes Shannon attached to John is that she like he is nothing special. He is like kind of a dud, but he is so much of an upgrade from David Beador, who has such serial killer vibes and is such like a trash person, that she is clinging on for dear life to John. And I think that that might motivate her to be so protective of this relation.
Fair enough.
This feels like it was filmed around, was it Thanksgiving? Was it, it felt like fall.
I'm not sure.
Oh, it was
New York is
September.
definitely at Thanksgiving.
It was September because
I
they said
had,
it's not even October yet, but there's pumpkins.
yeah, I had pumpkin
Oh,
spice
right.
latte vibes in that, it was a Gina had met in like that,
Oh, the pumpkin patch, right?
and that place was just nuts. Like the whole, like they were growing stuff and it was all like color coordinated throughout, like the whole amazing scenery.
Yeah.
Did it make you
You
want
know
to be
what?
there, Dan?
That's so.
I'm a simple man.
Well, I was gonna say, I felt like this over this past weekend. I said like 5 or 10 times, like, you know what? I'm actually ready for fall. I don't know. I just feel like I'm ready for it, and maybe like this entered my subconscious, and that's what made me feel that way.
Nice. Any normal
It was
person
well
is ready
done.
for fall. Just joking.
Yeah.
But I am.
Sandy, what were your highlights from Orange County?
Well, top one is the cake stand. Already mentioned that. I guess just the choice of this dressing up as each other party is classic OC. It's like total Mean Girls setup. Like it's literally a party to be mean, or you can be, and you probably will be. And it was kind of fun to see who was going to be the meanest. And Shannon was kind of the meanest because Shannon did the terrible hair extensions, which was when her life was falling apart, and she just had the worst hair. And fine, Shannon, but you're you're an underdog, so maybe have a little compassion, but whatever. And then there was not a lot of focus on Ryan and Jen in this episode, a little bit, and it's kind of a whatever storyline. But the flashbacks of Ryan, that's her boyfriend that everyone hates and is calling the town bicycle or whatever. He gives off just the weirdest fake like vibes when he's answering these questions for people. He's like, absolutely, yes, we'll be married. Like I can't even do an impression. He creeped me out big time with these flashbacks, especially for some reason. So that was one of my takeaways. I was like, ooh, because I haven't had that. Yeah.
I also really loved that like Jen's friend, like, who was like so Midwest. I didn't catch where she was from, but it was like definite like Midwest vibes. She's like, oh, I think he's a total babe. And they like showed a picture of him. And he is like, I don't know, he's like what I feel like a middle school girl's idea of what a babe in their late 40s would be. Like just very, very just like, I don't know, something very off, uncanny valley almost about it.
Totally.
But I also like was totally creeped out by Ryan in these flashbacks, or in the conversation that Jen had, where he was saying something like, "Oh, you're just self-sabotaging by like not wanting to marry me." Like she rightfully wants some time after getting out of this relationship, and so to be like, oh, we need to get married right away, you're just self-sabotaging, and it just felt very manipulative and icky.
I was interested in the friend Taylor. Of course, they all have the same names, so that's not helpful. But the Midwestern friend, because I'm trying to figure what her deal was, and I mean, it's her 15 minutes of fame too, so she was probably thinking about that. So she was like, aren't you going to get married? What's stopping you? Why aren't you jumping in? Unless you think you're going to find something out and really regret everything. And I'm like, what is your, like, I don't know. I don't even totally know if I have her pegged, but it was an interesting take. And she's definitely the only person pressuring Jen to get married to this guy, unless she knows the big secret. I don't know. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah, totally. Like definitely like feeding lines that they could give her either edit. Like either she was on the side of Jen being like, no, your relationship is rock solid, but also, depending on how things play out, just giving an out to the editors.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Do you have more highlights?
The only other thing was it seemed like Shannon was having a dog birthday party at the very beginning. I don't know. I guess I thought it was worth mentioning. It didn't look like that kind of a party.
It was like Orange County is very dog heavy this year. Like it basically opened with a shot of Emily drinking out of a dog bowl. It it's
Missed that.
yeah, no, they were like she was hiking with
Oh
someone. I can't
yes,
remember who
no,
she was
like
hiking with. Yeah,
early.
and
Yeah.
she drank out of yeah. But yeah, we also got like her Emily bathing her dogs. It's been a very like dog heavy season. Need more kittens. We got to see Jen with kittens. I haven't been a fan of Jen this season, but got to see her with some cats. So I'm like, oh, okay. Points for you. I'm a big time cat person, so um, she scores some points there with me. I think we covered most of my highlights as well. I did want to come back to Gina, who's someone that we hadn't talked about, and anyone that's been listening knows that I have been like just a big fan of Gina this season, and I thought that she had another good episode. I thought she handled this situation where Shannon was kind of trying to like turn the table and you know put some of this onto Gina. I thought she handled that really well, being like, I'm the last person that you need to involve in this because you've been poking around in my relationship, just like shutting that down so well. I thought that was very good in terms of her social game. I also thought at the end of things, where after Shannon had stormed out, um, Emily and Heather, like Heather pulled Emily aside to like kind of confront her about her part in this right away, which I thought was a very good move on Heather's part, because I think like this is the type of thing that you want to kind of like shut down, and while everyone's head is kind of in the moment, piece together and see how your relationship is going to go forward, right there, as opposed to dealing with this at a future point. um I also thought that Gina was especially smart to swoop in there and not let them do that one-on-one, because it for sure would have been a situation where they were going to be at odds. And maybe I'm like projecting this like social mastermind onto Gina where it isn't there, but I thought it was very smart of her to realize that Tamra and Shannon and Vicki all took off together in the same Sprinter van, and she goes in there and she immediately like takes control of the tone of that conversation, and it doesn't become confrontational. It becomes like, we're all on the same team, let's like kind of sort this out, and vibing. So I thought that was very smart. How intentional that was, how much of that was Gina's just like her personality, or how much of it was actually like calculating, that's up for debate, I think. But I think that it's just continuing to show her instincts as a housewife are very, very strong. And I feel like a lot of the criticisms that she is getting online, I find them a little bit baseless.
Always love your takes. I can't always. Sometimes I'm just like, whatever these ladies are doing, it's fun enough. But I'll take it.
Let's get into Real Housewives of New York. Dan, what were your thoughts on these women?
So a lot more fresh because I just watched it. But it's such a change of pace. Like New York just seemed like sophisticated, subtle, whereas OC was way the fuck out there. New York was just like, yeah, we're into fashion. We're pretty, successful. And if you don't like my thing, don't come to my charity. You're a princess. It was, if you're hoping for fireworks, it wasn't necessarily there. But again, because I'm not a big fan of the shows, maybe there's some daggers put in people's backs that I don't know about.
Yeah, that echoes my take. Like I feel like this is a very like fashion focused cast, more so than we see anywhere else. Usually there is like one or two of the housewives that are really focused on fashion and trying to like bring something interesting to the table. But here it's the focus of almost the entire cast. So yeah, I find that is really interesting. I don't have the best eye for fashion, so I don't know that I appreciate it as much as maybe a lot of viewers do, but it is really noticeably elevated compared to some of the looks that we see on other franchises. Did did any of the like the housewives stand out in terms of like their personalities and what they're bringing as being like particularly magnetic or really off-putting?
Off-putting. I mean, the only one that seemed to come out like a bit of a jerk in this episode was Jessel. Um, Nothing huge. Again, it wasn't that it was very muted tones versus what we would see in the OC, but um, yeah, she seemed to want to stir things up with a smile on her face. And she might be one if I was to watch more of these, one I'd want to follow because I think there's a definitely a game plan, and I can see her trying to push further with a lot of people. I mean, I don't know the history with Erin, but she seemed to play that off pretty well. Um, what did Jessel say? She called some people some old cackling hags,
Yeah.
and they took
Yeah, and
offense
then
to that.
she played it off like, oh, that's just British humor. Like she pulled a page directly out of Lisa Vanderpump's book and like, yeah, it's just British humor. You cackling old hag. Just had to add old onto on top. Yeah.
But and I wrote this down specifically. She was like, "That's how British people talk. Where we talk
Yeah.
dirty. We have bullocks and bugger and shag and twat."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the least offensive things I've heard from British people. They use the C word every second
Yeah.
sentence. Don't give me that ball bullocks. Oh, that's a load of bullocks. Hey, you can't say that.
Yeah, Jessel was like this. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say I really prefer this stuff to the OC who talked about Shannon's relationship. I have to say, like I way prefer getting mad about little petty comments over and over. That's like I just much prefer it, and I can follow it way better. I was getting finding a little mind numbing on OC. So I don't know. It's interesting, Dan, if you feel that it's like muted because I think it's almost just too much for me, and I like the subtlety. It revives me a little bit. So anyway,
It really might just be the version of, or the idea that I've only seen it once, so I want to see everything all at once versus, the long play. I would say New York was like Ocean's 11 versus Trailer Park Boys for OC. It was out there immediately.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I feel like yeah, we see on Orange County these pieces of information. They have to be so much bigger in order for them to make a splash in some cases, or they're relying on bigger pieces of information, whereas on New York, there's it's all just like table stakes, and they can play a hand with only putting like a few chips in the pot and really like make it into something that can be a source of conflict. I thought that this was a fantastic episode for Jessel. I think that she well, I am growing to appreciate what Jessel is bringing to the table. I don't know that that is shared across the fan base based on the reactions that I see on the spaces that I engage with this content in on Instagram. She seems to be getting the hatred that a villain often does on these shows, which it's such an essential role, and I think we're seeing her play it in such a unique way. We have seen lots of we've seen lots of villains throughout the Housewife franchises that it's a pretty like well defined archetype, but they're usually like very like savvy and smart and like calculated, and like we see like mastermind villains is kind of the archetype. But Jessel is just like clumsy and messy, but also like villainous, and it's something that we haven't seen before that I find really engaging. She is immediately coming out in lunches as aggressive. I loved how we got that scene of the lunch with Jessel and Erin, where it gets set up where Erin's expecting an apology, and Jessel just comes out of the gate like swinging and is like very like aggressive and off-putting with her like social conduct. um I just have found her so compelling to watch. It's almost an unsustainable performance as a housewife, I feel like, because she is going to be burning so many bridges both within the like the cast and the fandom that I don't know how long she can continue this. Like, she's gonna probably have to do some reflecting on this season and see how she wants to go, if she wants to try to get a redemption arc or if she wants to dig into being the villain. But and if she does dig into being the villain, I feel like she's gonna have to like change. I think she's gonna have to probably lean a bit more into that calculated archetype for it to work for her long term. But it's really fascinating to watch on this cast of newbies, where there's a lot of people that are kind of sorting out how to play the game, and so it's not as easily, they don't no one has a tool belt of tools to handle this play. So she's just like able to go and clumsily piss people off, and it's amazing to see.
Yeah, I don't want to seem ageist here, but like I think you can see a huge difference between the OC and New York. And I think, part of that is that maybe the sun isn't that good for you, but also when you get older, like you're done. Like you know what I mean? Like you're already crafted. Your mind's made up. You have a stronger opinion. And I feel like these younger ladies in New York are still kind of trying to figure their way out in the world. And the women in the OC, they're done. They know what their opinions are, and they're just more, open to sharing it. If you don't agree with me and I don't agree with you, fuck you. Where it's New York, it's like, I don't know, I can be changed, and I'm still trying to figure my way in this. And
Yeah, that's interesting, because one of the conversations that we had, Sandy, when you were on with Billy Chung, we were talking about the physical spaces of these shows. And I feel like the density of New York City and being so jam-packed into the city and needing to, be adaptive and create your own space, but also make room for others. I think that kind of impacts how you navigate social situations. Whereas Orange County, we see they've got the space to operate, they've got the doors to close, and they can't hear their neighbors, sort of thing. As kind of just like a metaphor for how they can operate socially. They can be a lot more rigid about their opinions because they have the space to do that.
I did notice at
What a
this. Oh,
Oh,
at
go
the
ahead.
start of this episode, there was a disclaimer for suicide, and I thought it was a franchise. What's the difference between, are these like filmed or released simultaneously? Like, why would there be one for New York versus one for OC?
Oh, it was because of Brynn's comments at the beginning of the episode, where she was talking about a suicide attempt that she had when she was in grade one, which was very like um, a very moving moment for her, and a shocking thing for her to say.
Yeah, that's something that stood out for me right away, is that like there was a more human side. At least what they were showing immediately was just like, wow, this is somebody that I really want to root for, versus this person is rich beyond my wildest dreams. I can't relate to them.
Yeah, totally. I thought that this I thought that this was a very interesting and moving scene. I found it interesting because we have seen Brynn, the way that she has operated since she has come on the show. And I mean, this is only like episode 5, but we've kind of commented about how it almost feels like she's playing up to the camera and a little forced almost, until we got this scene where she's talking about her past, and she says like, you know, I had to learn to be like, oh, if I could be like cute enough or funny enough, then, you know, I could find more safety in like in being that way. And that really showed, you know, this motivates her way of operating in the world up until this point, and it's deeply rooted in her personality because it was a survival mechanism. I thought this scene added so much dimension to her character. Just really loved to see this sort of candidness from her.
Yeah, I was cheering for her. She was some, you know, the whole chess thing where she knew she was horrible, but showed a sense of humility and just was like, I just want to play. Like, I just want to have fun. I just want to do it. And that's someone that I want to be around, is just someone that's willing to try something and be a person.
Yeah, I agree. So much more of her real self in this episode. Of course, it was so hard to listen to her story, and it was lovely to see how like strong she really is, considering that, and saying that she's doing all these things that she didn't get to do as an adult, and that's like what everyone should strive for. Like, and let alone like she's able to do that for herself after what she's come from. It's really lovely. And also like surprising. I wouldn't have been
Yeah,
like,
totally.
she loves chess, but you know, there you go. She loves chess. I didn't. Now I know. That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that this was like, I don't know. Yeah, the chess thing was a really good way for her to bring, you know, to again add more dimension to her character, just showing, you know, that she is going to try her best even if she's not succeeding at things. Um I thought that that was really nice to see as well, in terms of adding, fleshing out this character. So Dan, what were your highlights from this episode?
Um, you know, I I really just kind of liked everyone. Um, it was hard to have a highlight because it was, compared to the OC, it was pretty melodramatic. I mean, the highlights. It's pretty boring. You know, I talked to my wife and she was like, "Yeah, that one was so much better than the OC," and I was like, "Yeah, this is just a bunch of nice people getting along."
Man, that's not what I found at all. That's so cool. I love that. That's not how I took it at all.
Yeah, Sandy, what were your takeaways?
Well, again, I already said like I really appreciate, and I think everyone is different. Like, you know, Craig, you're very passionate about how people are playing with this piece of information on the OC, whereas I'm a little bit like, I can't even keep track of who's saying what. And you know, I love these shows too, but that's just not speaking to me. But on this, I was like, ooh, they are having these coffee dates, and they keep bringing up what Jessel said, like all the stuff you said, like these little pieces that they're playing. I find that really fascinating. I found it fun. I and you don't have to have an opinion on any of it. You can just enjoy it. So that's really all I have to say on that. But I thought it had a good pace to it. I just love New York. I just love everything. So that's the difference too. I'll watch anything in New York. It doesn't really matter what's happening in New York. So, but other stuff I noticed, I did certainly note that they threw Brynn a Thanksgiving dinner to like help her because of her. It's a sad time of year, and then absolutely forced her to give a testimony on the like most horrific parts of her life, which is good for
Yeah.
TV, I guess. But I was a little bit like, yikes! Like she was like, "Oh, thanks everyone. Now I can, you know, like not think about being sad." But no, it was about thinking about being about everything that's sad. So, anyways, I want them to stop talking about Jessel's sex life. It makes me extremely uncomfortable. That's just, I don't know. I don't know. That one bugs me. Just like leave her alone. Uh, and and
I find it interesting that she is not like pushing back very much on this and that she's embracing it. I actually find it a little bit refreshing that she is doing this, because often when people are talking about their personal sex lives on these shows, they are making it seem like they are very active and like like we see like Larsa on Real Housewives of Miami said that she had sex 4 times a night for 20 years while she was married to Scottie Pippen, which is absolutely not true and
You know for a
like
fact.
impossible. that is absolutely impossible to do. So it is kind of refreshing for her to like be open and honest about the fact that their relationship is maybe at a low point in terms of how their in terms of their sex life, but that they are still in a healthy relationship in other respects. I find that was refreshing to see, since it's just a perspective that we don't normally get.
That's totally true, and I definitely don't have a problem. I think that's a really good point, and that's nice to see. And then they just need updates on if she's had sex with her husband every day, I guess.
Yeah.
If that's the best you got. But otherwise, I did like their conversation. Other stuff, just little thing within all that sort of discussion about who said what, etc. Between Erin and Jessel, they got to a point of you don't support other women, which was a lovely callback to Ramona screaming into the phone to
Yes.
Bethany, "You don't support other women," and that was like classic
Yeah.
New York. So I liked that. Nice little reference. Probably not on purpose. And I think my last thing was I was really unimpressed with the name of Jessel's new design consultancy, The Know, as in the know.
Yeah.
Little too on the nose for me. I didn't think that was super cutting edge. So best of luck to her on that.
It sounded like when you do like a high school communications project or something like that, and you're like, the project is like come up with an agency, and like that's what you would go for when you're in high school.
I mean, I do want to say that, and this is kind of like a microcosm to much bigger industry, but all fashion that came in there, like the high fashion that came into Jessel's party, was bullshit. Like it's all bullshit. Like you're not gonna wear that out. You know what I mean? Like you do it for the appearance of others, but like anytime you see a big runway show, and you're like, that's only for a very select group of people. You're not like, oh yeah, I need to wear that taco dress. You know, sure, the designer makes nice things. So I guess that's where I get confused about what fashion should be and shouldn't, because there was some really nice clothing in that party, and then there was, the dude that walked in that suit that had street names all over it, where I was just like,
That's a map of Tribeca.
it could be high fashion, but you look like dog shit.
I actually kind of like seeing this. I don't know, when my wife and I, we watch Project Runway a lot, and I like it when there's like very editorial looks. So to see that kind of come out on a place that isn't the runway, I like. Not that any of these, I didn't find them like super editorial or out there, but definitely like noticeably more than you would see on the street. But that was also the crowd that was there. There was like big name fashion editors there, so that's exactly who I would expect to be dressing like that, I guess.
What was her name? Sai? Did she have the giant blazer that was like shoulders out to here?
Well, Brynn came in a blazer that belonged
Yeah, that was
to
that
some
was
unknown
yeah,
man.
some unknown man. But there was somebody else that came out with like a linebacker's blazer.
It could have been Sai. She is a fashion influencer, so that would make sense. I don't remember what she was wearing.
I mean, I'm a blue T-shirt Hanes kind of guy, so who am I to talk? But I've never seen anyone wear anything from the runway besides the Met Gala and be like, oh yeah, that fits into what we're doing. It
Yeah.
just it feels like a costume party.
Yeah. I do love that Brynn came in with this like blazer over that was, very underwhelming, but she still made a moment of it by being very cagey about, who it belonged to. And she, even in the confessional, she was like refusing to give who it belonged to, but it was like this purple blazer, and I'm pretty sure it would belong to the Joker. Like, if it was anyone else, you would say.
She does have that smile. I mean,
Yeah.
she has a very
Sandy, any other highlights from this episode?
No, I think that's about it. But I did really like it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode as well. You pointed out the lunch between Jessel and Erin, and I talked about it a bit at the start, and that was definitely like the high moment for me. I just loved this tension. I loved how Jessel is just completely creating tension with every person on the cast everywhere she goes. I find it really compelling to watch. I also love that, and I don't think it's intentional at all, but she was able to manage that tension at the end of this episode at her event when Erin came and supported her, and like she thanked her, and it seemed genuine, and they said they're good for now. I thought that was um, nice to see, because that kind of we got that, like, for me, that rewarding piece where the tension was boiling and boiling and boiling, and then we got a bit of a clash at lunch, and then a reset so that we've got a point for it to grow again. I'm looking forward to that not actually being done and them not being good. So I'm glad we were able to lower the stakes back down and reset, so that it can grow. The other thing that I really enjoyed was the scene that we got with Jenna and her friend Heather, where she was going through her closet, and it was almost like giving a timeline of her career through the outfits that she was sharing. I thought that was a really interesting way to kind of build her story and her um, just like how grandiose of a character that she is, by showing these outfits and being like, oh yeah, I met the Obamas in that one, or like, just giving adding all this dimension to her character through her wardrobe. I thought that was really good. We also got a little bit of a callback to episode 1, where she gets her friend to sit in the chair that Brynn and Erin broke in her closet. I just thought that was a nice touch. Um, but yeah, I agree, Sandy. I thought this was a very like good episode. I had a lot of fun watching it. Um, the lunch that we got between Brynn and Sai and Erin, the little chess math. There was just so much that was kind of like building these characters, but also there was a very like rewarding like story arc through it, and sufficient tension. I thought this was great. Uba was really funny, as she always is in this. I loved her line about anything with a job, I don't want it. I thought that was really funny. And great to know that hand jobs are back.
Now we know. Winnipeg's usually like years behind somewhere like New York, but we can make this happen in Winnipeg, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. 2023 summer of hand jobs. I think that about covers everything that I want to talk about. Any final thoughts from you, Dan?
no. Um, I'm blown away that you guys are much more enthralled with New York, but that must come through, the fandom of watching these shows, and I wish I wish that I could join that, because it would make my relationship with my wife better, but it just drags the soul out of me. So
I feel like New York is like, there's also something like very exciting about it being like a blank slate and us like getting to know these women. And there was a lot of reluctance to give this reboot a chance from the fan base. I've always been very excited about it, but um, I it's really nice to see that it is paying off. I was talking with my wife Jess about this cast, and I was like, I feel like I feel like we've got a very strong cast, with the exception of maybe Sai and Erin to a degree. Although I think Erin is bringing a little bit more than Sai. But this is like a very strong like cast for a season one from a show. Like usually we'll see a bit more turnover after an initial franchise launch.
Yeah, totally agree. Excited about it.
Sandy, any final thoughts from you?
No, but I was just gonna ask Craig, would you say like these two episodes? Because I know you are like super into the politics on OC. So did you did you like them both this week? Like, how would you rate them?
Yeah, I thought that both episodes were pretty good. Like, I don't know, I thought just kind of like rating on a scale, I thought that this is a pretty decent episode or a decent season of Orange County. I'd put the season of Orange County at about a 7.5. Um and this episode, I would also say, is probably about a 7.5. I was pretty satisfied. Like you said, Sandy, I feel like this party, the whole kind of Mean Girls element of like the theme of dress up as someone else and see who's going to be mean about it. And also we got a costume party, which is something that Bravo loves to do. They love having people fight in costumes, and so we got all of that. So actually, maybe it is like an 8.5 for this episode. I thought it was really good in that respect. It was missing something. I wouldn't put it at a 9 or a 10. I feel like it did need a little something extra that I can't put my finger on, but I thought it was pretty strong. And New York, like I said, I thought that we got a lot of character building, which is something that is so important on like a premiere season, to like build all these characters. And I thought that we were starting to see some bonding, and these women come together as a group, and if it's starting to feel a bit more organic in how they were interacting with each other, because as we have seen them in the Hamptons and in other social situations towards the beginning of the season, it has felt like a little bit of a mishmash in terms of like, why are they all together, why are they gathering, but maybe it's just now that we're a bit more familiar with them as a cast, it seems a little bit more organic, them coming together and how they're interacting. So I've appreciated that. I feel like Brynn has been in desperate need of um rounding out her character from like it. She's been a fantastic fun presence. The whole like flirty vibe has really been working for her in my opinion, but she is kind of needed to bring a little bit more of the real part, the real dimension. And I thought that she really did a great job there. So there was a lot there, and it was Jessel's episode for me. Like, she made a huge impact for me. I really love what she is bringing to this dynamic. So yeah, I would put this at about an 8. I think, like, we didn't see a fantastic blowout, but I feel like we got enough conflict that really like drove the episode, and it had a good pace to it. We got a lot of character building. um Sai is still not like really giving me anything. I find her pretty like forced. So I think she's really the low part of this season. Got a little bit more from Erin, I thought, this week. Like, just I kind of understand how she's operating now a bit better. It's not strategic, but she's Like she's sometimes you need a housewife that is like sensitive like she is, where she's like, takes offense to things, and she's very soft. I feel like, not like she has this like hard exterior, but she actually like internalizes every little thing and takes offense. And it's not really fun, but it's necessary for conflict. So I'm appreciating her a bit more, even if I don't necessarily love her so much.
Nice.
Well, I think that about does it for this week. Thank you guys so much for doing this. Dan, do you want to let people know where they can find you, or if you got anything you want to plug?
Yeah, been really loving Fortino's sourdough bread lately. Penne fresco. You can get sourdough bread anywhere, and honestly, it's worth the trip out to Ontario. I don't know if there's Fortino's in any other province, but it's the right amount of soft but not moist. And sourdough is really hard to capture. A lot of it is really crusty, and you put it into the toaster and it's just done. It's not even toast. It's crumbled. But penne fresco, Fortino's, you can eat it as a sandwich. You could put it in the toaster. It's killing it. This is the kind of bread that you go grocery shopping and you buy like 4 or 5 loaves, and just so you can put enough in the freezer. And that's like a week's worth. You're gonna eat all of it. And
a loaf of bread a day.
I kid you not, it's not that bad for you, which is crazy. If you're calorie counting, penne fresco, sourdough bread.
Nice. We will find a link and put it in the bio or show notes for this episode. Be sure to check out Fortino's penne fresco sourdough bread. Sounds fantastic. Sandy, how about yourself? Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Corporeal Curios, or type in my name and find my weird art.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's been Bravo Outsider for this week. I'm Craig Midwinter. You can find us online at bravooutsider.com, on Instagram, Threads, X, at Bravo Outsider. There might be an underscore in there. Just Google it if you can't find it. We're on YouTube. Like and subscribe. We'll be posting clips, isolated recaps, so be sure to check that out. Maybe even VR versions of these episodes. You never know. Also, be sure to rate us and subscribe on any podcast platforms of your choosing. That really helps us out. Until next week, keep on wifing.